I didn't want kids. I didn't want to get married.
You go and you hang out with him.
Mhm.
What is your headspace? Are you seeing him in like a could this be something kind of way? Or
No.
are you like, no?
I just didn't think it was going to be a thing. I
You
thought
were in a
we would
friend
be
group.
friends. Yeah. I was going to be like the girl out there getting it.
All right, so boom. Ayesha Curry is causing an uproar on social media because she recently went on the Call Her Daddy podcast and evidently disrespected her husband, Stephen Curry.
Again?
4 kids. Did you always knew you wanted a big family?
No. So I didn't want kids. I didn't want to get married. I thought I was going to be career girl and that's it. And I had my eyes set on my goals. And I was never the little girl that like dreamt about the wedding dress and all of that. And then it happened so early in my life. So it's like, it's one of those things like you don't know what you actually don't know what you want.
People heard that clip and immediately started running with it, saying how much more ungrateful can Ayesha Curry be? For one, it's a slap in the face to her 4 children from saying that she never really wanted to be a mother. And then furthermore, a slap in the face to her husband, Steph Curry, by saying she had no plans to be a wife. She solely wanted to focus on her and figuring it out in her career or whatever the case may have been. Couple that with what she said on the Red Table Talk 6.5 years ago.
Something that really bothers me and like honestly has given me a sense of a little bit of an insecurity is the fact that, yeah, like there are all these women like throwing themselves, but me, like the past 10 years, like I don't have any of that. Like I have zero, this sounds weird, but like male attention. And so then like I begin to internalize it and I'm like, is something wrong with me?
You're not looking.
What?
You're not
Like,
looking. Because I dealt with that for years too. Like, and I was young, like you.
yeah,
like,
that's
oh my
not
God.
fair.
I mean,
because I don't want it, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice to know that like someone's looking.
But when
That
your
could get
radar's
dangerous.
turned off, right?
You're
That could get
beautiful.
real
Don't
dangerous.
ever think for 1 minute that it ain't no some men out there looking at you like I wish. Honestly.
And I'm gonna tell you who knows that more than anybody. Your husband.
And then when she went on The Real 8 years ago,
Marcel.
This is gonna turn into a whole other thing. But my husband really loves my feet.
Oh, I love that.
And so like the light was hitting him just right that day. And so I was like, let me just snap this photo and send him a picture of my feet. So I always say like when he says to send nudes, like that's what he's getting, a picture of my bare feet. I don't know if he's happy about that, but that probably knows something about him. He likes feet. He's going to kill me.
well, this is just a situation in which the internet doesn't forget, and furthermore, the internet will not forgive, because you got to take into context what it was that she was doing. For one, when she went onto The Real, here comes this shirtless man for whatever segment they have going on. She, unprovoked, willingly made reaching grabs at her wedding ring. Now, albeit, you can sit there and say, well, it's a funny jab. She's just making jokes, whatever the case is. And at the time in 2017, that was what the case was. It wasn't until she went on the Red Table Talk in 2019 and talked about how she was, I don't want to say yearning for male attention, but the lack of attention that she was getting solely because she's Steph Curry's wife. You can tell she was insecure about it, because if you guys remember during that playoff run, there was that photo of the lady in the crowd, damn near had her nail in her mouth, looking incredibly lustfully at Steph Curry. It was going viral at the time, and all of the attention was constantly about how all of these women wanted Steph Curry, and here's Ayesha Curry essentially saying she's getting no attention whatsoever. But this was all pre-pandemic. We talk about things well over 6 years in the past. The reason why there's so much of an uproar is people haven't forgotten that. So the moment that you hear her say, well, I never wanted to be a wife, I never wanted to be a mother, people are going to take that and run with it. They're going to immediately say, oh, well, she said this, therefore her saying that. It all coincides and ties together. But they're not watching the entirety of the podcast. They're missing the complete context.
I didn't know that he was going to end up playing basketball. He said he wanted to be a high school basketball coach.
Now, this is where I think she was kind of talking out of her ass, because how could you say that, oh, well, he said he wasn't going to be a high school basketball coach. He's a son of an NBA player, albeit they met, at 14, 15, some years old, 13, 14, whatever the case may be. They met at their early teens of their years, right? And then they ended up becoming a relationship on their late teens. But Stephen Curry during his high school years, albeit they were away from each other, he's all state. He's a 3-star recruit getting ready to go to college. By the time that he got into college and he's playing at Davidson, blowing up in the NCAA tournament, March Madness, getting ready to go into the NBA, all these different things is happening in real time. So you're already seeing this is what's transpiring, right? So it's kind of foolish. Well, I didn't know he was going to end up being at the NBA. Now, albeit she probably didn't know that he would ascend to the heights that he made it to. Hell, he probably didn't know that was the case too. Because remember, early in Steph Curry's career, he had them ankle injuries. People was like, man, he's incredibly injury prone. There was a situation where Golden State had to make a decision whether it was going to be Monte Ellis or Steph Curry. All these different things. Nobody could have predicted that these was, the heights that he was going to go and reach, ultimately becoming the greatest shooter of all time. Top 15 player of all time, and you can argue top 10 player of all time. Some people could even put him in the top 5, depending on who it is that you're talking to. But that's neither here nor there. It's not about Steph Curry. It's about Ayesha Curry. This is just a lady and a woman who is wrestling internally behind what is her identity, because you're married to this larger than life character, a one of one, and ultimately that light shining so incredibly bright, nobody looking at you. So there's a heightened level of insecurity that happens to be over there. Now, albeit she did mention in the episode, there's moments in which she tries to go and talk to Steph about those insecurities.
It's so hard also to be the woman in a situation where you're like, men just don't get as much scrutiny. Like, they can maybe tell him like, your fucking shots suck tonight, but like the looks and all of that is just like not a factor of conversation as much.
No.
Did you talk to Steph about it? Like, or did you kind of keep it within yourself so it didn't?
I do not have a bone in my body that can keep anything to myself. So if it comes to mind, it's coming out. And he's so gracious. Like, he tries to resonate with me, but he just can't. And he also comes from a place of like, it's effing stupid. Like, it's not true. So why? And I'm like, but wait, like, listen to how it makes me feel. And he's like, but why does it make you feel like that? It's not real.
Now, the positive is that she has these conversations with Steph. The downside is it still comes off as that she's searching for the vindication and validation from the populace. Because if he were to say, well, why do you care about it if it's not true? And if they're calling you ugly, but I think you're attractive, you think you're attractive, why is it that you need them to change their tune? When at the end of the day, it's us, the circle of two, that matters the most in the realm of attractiveness, right? And I didn't like the fact that throughout the entirety of the episode, Alex Cooper, the podcast host, seemed to try to drive home a bunch of like the double standards. Like, yes, men and women are different. That's just what it is. We're never going to be viewed the same, right? She started off the entire premise talking about how, oh, well, why is it that a man isn't necessarily judged on his looks? In the case of Steph Curry, he's primarily going to be judged on his jump shot or something of his game. Why is it that they don't talk about the look? Why do you think that that's not what the context of his entire profession is? Like, what are we doing? You play basketball. Nobody give a shit if you ugly. If you could go out there and drop 30 every single night, they're going to talk about the fact you could drop 30. If you look like the underneath a shoe, that shit won't matter because people going to be on some, yo, I want someone on my team. Despite the fact that you ugly, you put up 30 a night. Like, this don't make no sense. If you happen to have a hot woman that's next to you, it's like, all right, that checks out. You're one of the best in the game. You got yourself a trophy wife. If you happen to have an incredibly hot lady, but then the hot lady is dating like an incredibly attractive dude, but that dude's a bum. You the unemployment final boss. You got nothing going for you outside of your looks. You know what they're gonna say? Yo, what's good with shorty? Why you with this bum? You can get with somebody else. Like, we're viewed differently. Not to say that's the only way that we're viewed, because I know there's gonna be some comment section. So women don't have any value outside of their looks. Men are only valued for what they can provide. I know there's gonna be people who's losing the doggone plot, but understand what it is that I'm saying, right? I just don't like the fact that we continue this doggone gender battle. Like, we need each other, right? Can we stop with this bullshit? Nonetheless, let's go back to Ayesha Curry, right? This is an individual who unfortunately is still dealing with the insecurities. Now, albeit, that's not to say that she, when she was younger and didn't envision herself becoming a wife and a mother, that's not to say that she can't change her mind. She can change her mind. You could sit there at 16 and say, well, I'm just gonna be about my stuff. I'm gonna grind. I'm become a Hollywood star. I'm gonna be like the Meghan Markle and all this other stuff going on. I wanna be like Viola Davis or whatever. And then all of a sudden you came across this dude who's larger than life, becomes one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And then now your role is wife and mother. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think she's still wrestling internally, trying to figure out, well, is this all I'm ever going to be? Albeit, once you become a parent, it's no longer about you anymore. However, she's in a position in which you have the resources to where you can still be a parent, and then you could also pursue other endeavors that it is that you want to do. And she did mention in the midst of the podcast, she acknowledged being attached to Steph Curry did indeed provide her with different sort of possibilities and opportunities.
How did being in the spotlight impact your relationship in the early days? Because you guys didn't know how to handle it.
It's a double-edged sword because parts of it have afforded me doors to be open. I obviously have to walk through them and then put in the work to stay in the room. But that, I think, would be the elephant in the room, is like, I'm grateful for that side of things. But on the flip side, I in the beginning hated it so much. I did not sign up for that.
All that being said, I really implore everybody, just go and listen to the episode. Now, albeit it's not as if it's some amazing conversation, but it can provide a lot of context to the conversation that's since been circulating around social media. I'll say this much. It's nothing more than a lady who's really struggling to figure out her identity outside of being a wife to one of the greatest NBA players of all time. Because again, like I stated prior, this is someone who was working since they were 3 with hopes and dreams of what it was that she was going to go and achieve. And essentially that went on the back burner because you had to essentially be a wife and a mother. Not to say that she can never get back into it, because for all intents and purposes, let's just say 10, 15 years from now, right? All the kids are older. She could go and break into Hollywood if she wanted to. It'll be a little bit different. You may not be in the prime of your life or beauty or whatever the case may be. That's not to say that those opportunities won't possibly show its head down the line. I think she so desperately wants to be able to achieve something detached from the Curry name, to where it's like, I worked and I grinded to get this on my own without people having to immediately go and point and say, oh, well, it's because of this person. But unfortunately, this is indeed, although she said, well, that's not what she had signed up for, but this is indeed what you do mess around and sign up for when you happen to indulge in a union with somebody who ends up becoming such a large figure. It's nothing different than somebody who's unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but someone who's an offspring, a child of somebody who is incredibly successful. Once you become into the category of a Nepo baby, you almost never run from it. It doesn't matter what you do. Somebody's gonna say, oh, well, that's mommy's money. That's daddy's money. That's your uncle's money. That's your grandparents' money. They'll never give credit to you.
Hoping I don't get in trouble for the things that I say.
It's only trouble if you make it trouble. Because at the end of the day, none of us are within your relationship. If her and Steph is good, none of this shit matters. Now, but you have to take into account how you will be perceived based off what it is that you said. And furthermore, you got to remember how social media works, because the moment that you went on to the Red Table Talk and you said what you said, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, people are going to forever remember this because you have a digital footprint. Hence why, naturally, people are going to end up contorting and twisting your words, whatever the case is. You just have to be at peace with the fact that there are people who are going to do that. So I say all that to say, just a bit of advice to Ayesha moving forward. You might have to think very, very closely to what it is that you're going to say and what you're going to share moving forward. Should you have to move that way? No, but it would be in your best interest to do so if you want to be able to go and control your narrative. Because I can tell you something right now. People who want to spin this and say, oh, well, it's because she's a woman. That's why they're viewing. Savannah James could hop on a podcast and just talk. As long as she doesn't get incredibly candid about things that nobody needed to know, for all intents and purposes, you can say whatever the fuck it is that you want to say. But you got to recognize that what you're saying is not only affecting you, it's also affecting, your spouse. Because you're not only representing yourself, you're also representing your spouse. Hence why, if Curry got on a podcast and he was talking about what Ayesha's kinks just so happen to be, or maybe he wasn't really feeling her like that back when they were younger or whatever, they're gonna look like, yo, that's your wife, bro. Why you airing her out like that? So it's the same way that it goes. So I say all that to say, just be very mindful of how people speak on socials. Overall, I think this was something that was blown completely out of proportion. It wasn't similar to what we saw when she was on the Red Table Talk, and people are just taking things out of context because they don't actually go watch the totality of the interview to understand what it was that she was saying and why it was that she was saying it. So there's been a bunch of think pieces. People have made a ton of different videos. People have put out a litany of different tweets, all these different stuff, just running with something without actually having the full context. But overall, I'm curious what you guys think of the episode. This is the thing. Go watch it in its totality and then comment. Don't just look at the clip and then comment. Watch the totality of the interview and then post your comment. Because I don't want a situation in which now motherfuckers is echoing, talking points from people who didn't see the entirety of the episode. So there's that. I look forward to reading your thoughts in the comment section. Hey, I appreciate you watching the entire video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button on the way out if you haven't already. And on top of that, hit that notification bell as well. For whatever reason, YouTube's only showing my videos to 20% of my subscribers. So if you have already turned on the notification bell, turn it off, turn it back on. If you never turn it on, turn it on. I appreciate you.